Good morning, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here with you today. My name is Nara Avtandilyan, and I'm an English for academic purposes senior lecturer at University Foundation in Doha, Qatar. For the past several years, I have been deeply engaged in researching and presenting on the role of artificial intelligence in education. My last presentation in Dubai in face-to-face conference was Artificial Intelligence in Education, Panacea or Pandora's Box. Today, I will present about chatbots, and I'm excited to share some key insights with you today. In an era where classrooms are growing in size while instructional time remains limited, educators face a persistent challenge. How can we provide meaningful, individualized language practice to each student? This question is especially pressing in second language acquisition, where exposure and interaction are critical. I hope this session sparks both curiosity and critical reflection on how we as educators and researchers might integrate emerging technologies into pedagogical practice, not as replacement, but as partners in the learning process. Let me begin with a question. What do you think? To what extent can chatbots help students learn a second or foreign language in large classes? According to recent studies, chatbots can be highly effective. For instance, a 2022 study published in Language Learning and Technology found that using AI-powered chatbots improved their speaking proficiency scores by 23% over a 10-week period, compared to just 10% in the control group. Additionally, over 80% of participants reported increased confidence and motivation to practice the language outside of class. Now, I have decided to do my own research to investigate the efficacy of AI-powered chatbots as pedagogical tools in large English as a second or foreign language classrooms in Qatar. With class sizes often exceeding optimal student-teacher roles, educators face significant challenges in providing personalized instruction and timely feedback. Chatbots offer a potential solution, providing scalable, on-demand language practice and support. This research involved 70 undergraduate ESL students across two universities here in Qatar, in Doha, who interacted with a custom-designed English learning chatbot over one semester. The study employed a mixed method approach, incorporating pre- and post-test surveys and semi-structured interviews. Results indicate that chatbot led to statistically significant improvements in language skills, particularly in vocabulary acquisition and grammar. Students reported increased engagement and confidence, although limitations in chatbot comprehension and personalization were noted. The findings suggest that while chatbots cannot replace human instruction, they can serve as effective supplemental tools in large ESL classes. Now, in some universities around the world, English as a second or foreign language classes are characterized by large student enrollments, often exceeding 30 students per class. I'm sharing this from my own experience. This high student-to-teacher ratio presents challenges for individualized instruction, timely feedback, and active student participation. Traditional teaching methods often struggle to meet the diverse learning needs of such large groups. In this context, technology-enhanced learning tools, particularly chatbots, offer promising potential to support language acquisition and improve student outcomes. Chatbots are AI-driven conversational agents capable of simulating human dialogue. In educational settings, they have been used to provide tutoring, answer student queries, and facilitate language practice. Their capacity for 24/7 availability and instant feedback makes them particularly appealing in resource-constrained settings. However, empirical research on the effectiveness of chatbots in large ESL classrooms remains limited. This study addresses this gap by evaluating the impact of chatbot-based intervention on English language learning outcomes among university students in large ESL classes. Specifically, the study investigates whether chatbots can enhance language proficiency, increase student engagement, and support teachers in managing large classrooms. Now, I would like to provide some theoretical framework for this study. Um, and this framework draws on four key perspectives relevant to language learning and educational technology. These are socio-cultural theory, second language acquisition, SLA theories, cognitive load theory, and the technology acceptance model, TAM for short. Sociocultural theory, developed by Vygotsky, emphasizes the central role of social interaction in the learning process. According to this theory, learners acquire knowledge and skills through meaningful interactions with more knowledgeable others. In the context of ESL classrooms, these interactions are typically with instructors and peers. However, in large classrooms where individual attention is limited, chatbots can act as surrogate interlocutors, providing learners with additional opportunities to engage in dialogue, receive feedback, and develop language skills. Second language acquisition theories, particularly Krashen's input hypothesis and Swine's output hypothesis, further support the use of chatbot. Krashen posits that learners acquire language when they are exposed to comprehensible input, language that is slightly above their proficiency level but still understandable. I think the most important principle is maximizing learners' exposure to the language they want to learn. Young children learn their mother tongue by being exposed to language many hours a day over a number of years. One reason second language learning is difficult is because most second language learning classrooms and courses don't offer, anything close to the same number of hours, days, or years of language input. So it's important for teachers and learners to maximize exposure any way they can, which makes sense. But you may ask, how can we do that? Of course, how to do this will depend on your situation. If you are living in a country where the second language is spoken, then opportunities for input and interaction are everywhere. I picked up some Arabic by actively talking to taxi drivers when I just arrived in the Middle East. Most of us, however, will be learning in our home country, and it will be much more difficult to get enough input. Many of us go to language classes, but the input there will always be limited. We need to find sources of the language outside the classroom as well. Everything helps, for example, watching TV or movies or playing computer games. And the more, the better. Reading is one of the best ways to increase your exposure because you can control how fast and slowly you read. There's an amazing amount of reading material available in many different languages and at different levels of difficulty. The internet also has many other sources, including chatbots, which I will come back to later. Krashen believed that teaching about the language and its rules was not effective, and that all learners really needed was exposure to comprehensible input. This means that as long as language input is adjusted to the learner's level and they can understand it, they can learn it. Chatbots can provide customized, level appropriate input based on user responses. Learning occurs when most input is understood, but it also includes a few features that learners do not already know. Krashen's thinking was influential and was one of the factors leading to teaching methodologies broadly referred to as communicative language teaching. Crescent's influence was positive, that it promoted lots of meaningful input for students, particularly through extensive reading. But he never provided sufficient evidence to support his claim that explicit teaching does not lead to learning. The second principle is that learners need to actively engage with the input in order to drive their language learning forward. This is where interaction comes in because it helps engagement and provides opportunities for students to practice the language. Swain emphasizes the importance of language output in the learning process, suggesting that producing language prompts learners to process and internalize linguistic structures. This relates to the concept of interaction and the idea that learners need to actively engage with input to learn it. Interaction involves activities where learners work together with other students to use language and includes the idea of output as well as input. Interaction can be things like asking questions of the teacher, working with other students to solve the problem, carrying out the role play in class, or talking with other people outside the classroom. Using the language in real interaction or communication helps learners notice the link between the meaning of what they say and the language they need to express it. It also provides opportunities for feedback, any kind of response that allows the learner to know how successful their language has been. So if you ask for an orange juice in a cafe and the waiter brings you one, you get positive feedback that the language you used was effective. And teachers can make students aware of features without expecting students to be able to produce the language correctly. If a learner doesn't first notice features of the language and input, how will they be able to produce them? So instead of teaching grammar or vocabulary, the teacher's role is to guide students to notice features of the language. For example, students might be guided to notice how the past tense is formed by adding ed to regular verbs. They can do this by reading a story in past tense and underlining all of the verbs. So we get meaningful input plus an explicit focus on the language. Chatbots encourage such output by promoting users to construct sentences, answer questions, and participate in conversations. Cognitive load theory addresses the mental effort required to process new information. In large ESL classes, students often experience cognitive overload due to the pace and complexity of instruction. Chatbots can help manage this load by offering personalized, self-paced learning experiences. They allow students to revisit materials, clarify doubts, and practice skills without the pressure of classroom dynamics. The technology acceptance model explains how users come to accept and use new technologies. For short, it's TAM. It identifies perceived usefulness and perceived ease of use as key factors influencing technology adoption. While carrying out my research, I applied TEM, the Technology Acceptance Model, to explore how students perceive the chatbot in terms of its utility in supporting language learning and its ease of use. Positive perceptions can lead to higher engagement and sustained use of technology. By integrating these theoretical perspectives, the study provides a comprehensive framework for understanding the role of chatbots in large ESL classrooms and evaluating their impact on student learning. So, large ESL classes pose numerous challenges for effective teaching and learning. Research by several educators highlights issues such as limited student participation, reduced individual attention, and difficulties in classroom management. Instructors often struggle to monitor student progress, provide timely feedback, and address diverse learning needs. The lack of personalized instruction can hinder language acquisition and reduce student motivation. In some countries, these challenges are compounded by resource constraints and variability in student proficiency levels, making it difficult to implement differentiated instruction. This is precisely where chatbots can step into to assist. Chatbots have evolved significantly from rule-based systems to sophisticated AI-driven platforms capable of natural language processing and machine learning. In education, chatbots have been used to support admin tasks, provide tutoring, and facilitate learning. Currently, Hall and Bull explored the use of chatbots in intelligent tutoring systems, demonstrating their potential to deliver personalized instructions. They reviewed the role of chatbots in higher education, noting their effectiveness in enhancing student engagement and providing immediate assistance. The use of chatbots in language learning has garnered increasing attention. Educators investigated chatbot mediated learning and found that students improved their vocabulary and grammar through interactive dialogues. GIA observed that chatbots could support conversational practice, allowing learners to stimulate real life communication scenarios. Some of them conducted studies in Japan and demonstrated that chatbots increase student motivation and language output. These findings suggest that chatbots can complement traditional instruction by offering additional practice and feedback opportunities. So, in the specific country context, sorry, in the specific country context, like in the Middle East, the integration of AI in education is still emerging. And educators examined the use of digital tools in classrooms and found generally positive student attitude. However, they emphasized the need for cultural and linguistic adaptation to ensure relevance and effectiveness. Given the linguistic diversity and varying levels of English proficiency among students, chatbot content must be tailored to local needs. Additionally, infrastructure and digital literacy pose challenges that must be addressed to facilitate effective implementation. While While existing studies affirm the potential of chatbots in language learning, there is limited empirical evidence on their effectiveness in large ESL classrooms. Most studies focus on small groups or international or individual learners, leaving a gap in understanding how chatbots function in high enrollment settings. This study, my research, addresses this gap by examining the use of a custom-designed chatbot in large university ESL classes and evaluating its impact on language proficiency and student engagement. So my study employed a mixed methods design combining quantitative and qualitative approaches to gain a comprehensive understanding of chatbot effectiveness in large ESL classrooms. The participants were 70 undergraduate students enrolled in compulsory English language courses at two Qatari universities in Doha. Classes ranged in size from 25 to 33 students. Participants were aged 18 to 22 and represented various academic disciplines, including engineering, business, and education. All students had basic proficiency in English and access to smartphones or computers. Students interacted with a custom-designed chatbot named Ella, English Language Learning Assistant, via the Telegram messaging platform. Telegram is very popular among Arab students, at least in Qatar. Ella was developed specifically for the Qatari context, which with content adapted to local curricula and linguistic features. The chatbot offered grammar quizzes, vocabulary exercises, pronunciation tips, reading passages, and conversational simulations. The intervention lasted for 14 weeks, one academic semester, with students required to complete at least 2 chatbot sessions per week. Pre and post tests were administered to assess students' vocabulary, grammar, reading comprehension, and writing skills. The tests were designed in collaboration with course instructors and aligned with course objectives. Surveys were conducted at the end of the intervention to measure student perceptions of chatbot usefulness, ease of use, engagement, and motivation. Semi-structured interviews were conducted with 20 randomly selected students and 6 instructors to gain deeper insights into their experiences. Quantitative data were analyzed using SPSS software. Paired t-tests were conducted to compare pre- and post-test scores and determine the significance of improvements. Survey data were analyzed using descriptive statistics and factor analysis to identify underlying dimensions of student perceptions. Qualitative data from interviews were transcribed and analyzed thematically to identify recurring themes and patterns related to chatbot use, benefits, challenges, and suggestions for improvements. So the analysis revealed statistically significant improvements in students' language proficiency following the chatbot intervention. The average pre-test score you can see in the table was high, 62.4 out of 100. Now, gains were most pronounced in vocabulary acquisition and grammar accuracy, while improvements in reading comprehension and writing skills were also noted, but less marked. Survey results showed high levels of student satisfaction with the chatbot. Over 85% of students agreed that the chatbot was easy to use, while 78% felt it helped them learn more effectively. Students reported that the chatbot provided a non-threatening environment to practice English, especially for those who felt shy participating in traditional classroom discussions. Students also highlighted the chatbot's instant feedback as a valuable feature. So, interviews, student and teacher feedback interviews. Interview responses reinforced these findings. Students appreciated the flexibility of engaging with the chatbot at their own pace and noted increased motivation to practice English regularly. However, some students and instructors pointed out limitations, including occasional misunderstandings by the chatbot and its inability to handle complex or nuances language queries. Instructors expressed cautious optimism, viewing the chatbot as a useful supplementary tool rather than a replacement for traditional instruction. These results demonstrate that chatbot can significantly enhance ESL learning outcomes in large classes, especially in areas where students can benefit from repetitive practice and immediate corrective feedback. The findings of this study have several implications for language educators, curriculum designers, and policy makers. First, the use of chatbots in large ESL classes can help mitigate challenges associated with high student-teacher ratios by offering individualized language practice and feedback. This is particularly valuable in settings where teachers are overburdened and students have limited opportunities for one-on-one interaction. Second, the positive student responses to chatbot use suggest that these tools can increase learner motivation and engagement, which are critical factors for successful language acquisition. The chatbot provided a low-stress environment for language practice, which encouraged more frequent and sustained interaction with English outside the classroom. Third, the study underscores the importance of context-sensitive design in educational technology. The chatbot effectiveness was partially due to its alignment with local curricular goals and linguistic features. Future implementations should consider cultural, technological, and pedagogical factors to maximize the benefits of chatbot-based interventions. Finally, while chatbots show great promise, they should be seen as supplements to, not substitutes for human instruction. Teachers play a vital role in facilitating nuanced language learning, providing emotional support, and addressing complex language issues that chatbots cannot manage. Ongoing teacher training and institutional support are essential to integrate chatbot technologies effectively into existing ESL programs. Now, about limitations and recommendations.